You can put the compost bin almost anywhere in your garden. It needs to sit directly on the soil so that any liquid produced as the material breaks down can drain away. So it's best not to put it on paving, concrete or tarmac. You can keep it in the same place or move it around each time you empty it. I'm going to put this bin here at the side of my garden where the ground is nice and level. Put the bin where it is easy to get to all year round, with access for a wheelbarrow if you use one. If possible, there should be some working space around the bin in case you want to mix materials and for when you want to empty it. Find an amazing array of stuff to put in your compost bin once you know what can and can't be composted. Basically, anything that was once living, that is, materials of plant or animal origin, can be composted, and anything that is not of living origin can't be composted. So things like these, tins, plastic and glass, can't be put in your bin. But they can often be taken to the local recycling centre instead. And then there are of course some things that don't quite follow the rule. Some materials are best kept out of the domestic compost bin, although in theory they are compostable. For example, you should not put used cat litter, meat scraps or any cooked food in the bin. Vegetable peelings from the kitchen are good compost ingredients. Collect them in a bucket or a kitchen caddy and empty it into the compost bin regularly. Junk mail, cardboard egg boxes, kitchen paper, loo roll middles and general low-grade paper are other common household items to compost. You can add them to the vegetable scrap bucket or collect them separately. Crumple up the paper and cardboard before you put it into the bin. This is better than tearing or shredding it, as it keeps the air in the heap. Composting is not the best way to deal with large quantities of newspaper. These are best sent for recycling. Most of the plant debris from the garden can also be put in the bin. For example, prunings, whether it is soft leafy material or more woody prunings, weeds, grass mowings and clearings from the vegetable patch, they can all go in the compost bin. Autumn leaves can be added to your compost heap in small quantities. If you have large amounts, then you can stack them separately to make leaf mould. Bedding from vegetarian pets can also be put in the bin, but if your pets are bedded on wood shavings, then don't put too much of this in the bin, as it will take a long time to break down. There are just a few things that you need to remember when making compost. Composting is a natural process involving many different kinds of bugs. You can provide the right ingredients to feed the bugs and give them the conditions they like to live in. They need food, air and a bit of moisture. The material you put into your compost bin can be divided into greens and browns. Basically, you need a mixture of both. The greens are the young, tender and moist materials such as grass clippings, vegetable peelings from the kitchen and other tender plant material from the garden. The greens tend to rot very quickly. If you leave a heap of grass mowings alone for a few days, it will soon get hot. This shows that the compost bugs have started to work. But grass on its own will rot down to a slimy heap that isn't compost. The greens are important because this is the food that the bugs really like to eat.
This is the stuff that really gets the heat going.
The browns are the tougher materials, like these woody prunings, or dry stuff like this plant debris that has been cleared from the garden, or autumn leaves.
This stuff takes ages for the bugs to break down, but browns are important because they add structure and body to the heap.
This will ensure that there is always plenty of air within the material. Remember that the composting bugs need air to do their job. Straw, wood shavings, cardboard and paper are also browns, but don't forget to crumple the paper before you put it in. Many items that you can add to the compost heap are a mixture of both greens and browns. For example, these soft prunings where the leaves are still young and sappy, but they also have a more woody stem.
So, the key to making really good compost is to add a balanced mixture of greens and browns.
Greens will get the composting bugs started and the browns will give structure and body to the heap. If the material you add to the bin is dry, then you will also need to add a bit of water. The final ingredient is the many microorganisms that will do the composting for you.
You can't see them, but there are millions in this handful of compost. They move in on their own accord, so luckily you don't have to add them. Add material to your compost bin as it becomes available. The more you add at once, the better. So try and gather a few ingredients together each time.
Remember that you need a mixture of greens and browns. Don't worry about exact quantities, but try and add roughly equal amounts of each. If you've got quite a lot of one sort of ingredient, mix it with another or add it to the compost bin in alternate layers. If you have a lot of vegetable scraps from the kitchen, then you can mix these with paper and cardboard, but don't forget to crumple up the paper before you put it in. You can mix grass mowings with autumn leaves or cardboard. Some bits you may need to cut into smaller pieces, and the chunky material can be chopped with a sharp spade. Alternatively, it can be shredded before it is put into the bin. Spread the stuff out to the edges of the bin and firm down gently. Add water if the material is dry and then replace the lid.
If you've just added a lot of material to your bin in one go, you will find that it will begin to get hot within a few days and the material will break down quite quickly. If, on the other hand, you're only adding small amounts to your bin each time, then it probably won't get hot. But don't worry, it will still break down, it'll just take a bit longer.
As the material decomposes, it decreases in volume, so you may never actually fill the bin completely.
Just keep on adding more material.
After 6 to 12 months, there should be some finished compost at the bottom of the heap. If you have a hatch on your bin, you can check to see what it looks like.